No cameras, no headlines, no official statement. Just two familiar names moving quietly toward a place of farewell. And a message so restrained, it shattered millions of hearts without raising its voice. This was not a performance. This was grief witnessed too closely. There are moments in the entertainment world when everything slows down. Not because someone demanded attention, but because silence suddenly feels heavier than noise. This was one of those moments. When whispers began to circulate that Wang Yibo Xiao Zhan had quietly visited the resting place of Yu Menglong, the global fandom froze. No photos confirmed it. No press outlet rushed to break it first. And that was exactly why it felt real. In an industry built on visibility, disappearance speaks volumes. Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan did not arrive as superstars. They did not announce their presence. They did not turn grief into a public ritual. Instead, they stepped into a space where applause does not belong, where names are spoken softly and emotions are not meant to be consumed. Yu Menglong's passing had already left a deep ache. But what followed, the way he was remembered, shifted something inside the fandom. Because what emerged wasn't spectacle. It was restraint. And restraint, when chosen deliberately, can be devastating. As fans pieced together the fragments of information, one thing became clear. This was not about visibility. This was about respect. About standing beside loss without trying to own it. And the quiet had only just begun. Then came the message. Not long, not poetic, not designed to circulate endlessly across timelines. A few lines, carefully written, carefully held back. May his family truly find comfort and healing from this pain. That was it. And somehow, it was enough to undo people. In a world trained to expect dramatic tributes, lengthy paragraphs, emotional crescendos, symbolic language. This simplicity felt almost unbearable, because it did not ask to be admired. It did not guide the reader on how to feel. It simply existed. Fans described reading the message multiple times, not because it was complex, but because it felt unreal in its calm. There was no attempt to elevate Yu Menglong into an unreachable legend. No framing of loss as something noble or beautiful. Just pain, acknowledged, not embellished. Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan didn't speak as public figures protecting an image. They spoke as people choosing their words carefully, aware that every sentence might land on a wound that was still open. And in choosing gentleness over grandeur, they reminded everyone of something deeply uncomfortable. That real grief does not perform. It waits, it pauses, it whispers, and that whisper traveled far. Segment 3. What made this moment echo so deeply across the fandom was not what Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan chose to express, but everything they deliberately left unsaid. They did not reach for grandeur. They did not polish grief into something inspirational. They did not turn Yu Menglong into a distant legend framed by achievements and numbers. Instead, they chose something far more fragile. They remembered him as a person, a gentle presence, a warm soul, someone whose value did not depend on how brightly he shone, but on how quietly he touched others. In an industry where remembrance often becomes a spectacle, this choice felt almost radical, because it resisted the instinct to amplify. It resisted the urge to control the narrative of loss. Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan did not elevate themselves as witnesses to tragedy. They did not speak from above. They spoke from beside. They did not say, "Look at how much this hurts us." They said without saying it, "This pain is not ours to own." And that distinction mattered. Fans felt it immediately. The tone was different. The absence of self-centered language created space for Yu Menglong's name, for his family, for those who loved him beyond the public eye. Across platforms, reactions shifted, not into outrage, not into obsessive speculation, but into something quieter. People paused before commenting. Some admitted they didn't know how to respond at all, because when grief is handled with humility, it disarms the audience. There was nothing to analyze, nothing to debate, only something to feel. And in that feeling, admiration subtly transformed into respect. What truly set this moment apart was the discipline behind it. In an age where emotion is often amplified for visibility, Wang Yibo Xiao Zhan chose restraint, a choice that requires far more strength than expression. They did not dramatize loss. They did not poeticize pain. They did not frame sorrow as something consumable. Instead, they allowed silence to remain intact. This silence was not emptiness. It was intentional, carefully held, as if each word had been weighed against the reality of those left behind. Restraint does not weaken emotion. It intensifies it. Fans sensed this immediately. Many described the message as heavy, despite its brevity. Others said it felt almost unreal, too calm for something so painful. And that calmness became the loudest statement of all. There was no emotional guidance, no cues telling the audience how to react, no invitation to sympathize publicly. Just grief standing quietly on its own. This kind of presence asks for nothing. And that is why it receives everything. By refusing to center themselves, Wang Yibo Xiao Zhan demonstrated a rare understanding of grief. That not every loss is meant to be shared loudly, and not every pain benefits from explanation. Their decision to step back rather than forward allowed dignity to remain untouched. And in doing so, their image did not expand outward. It deepened inward. Some farewells arrive like echoes, repeating, demanding to be heard. Others arrive like a hell breath. This one did not ask to be remembered, yet it stayed. Yu Menglong was honored without being reduced to a moment. Wang Yibo Xiao Zhan spoke without occupying space meant for someone else's sorrow. And the fandom responded without demanding answers. There were no explanations offered, no timelines for healing, no promises of moving forward. Only an acknowledgement that some losses remain unfinished. And perhaps that is why this moment continues to linger in so many hearts. Because it did not try to resolve grief. It simply stood beside it. In a world that constantly urges people to recover, to reframe pain into lessons, Wang Yibo Xiao Zhan chose something quieter and far more human. They allowed grief to exist as it is. Unresolved, uncomfortable, real. And in that stillness, fans understood something without being told. That dignity can be louder than words. That empathy does not require performance. And that some lights do not vanish when they fade from view. They remain, not in headlines, not in trending lists, but in the quiet way people remember.